Miss Annie, are you going to talk about afternoon tea today? Are we going to have a high class afternoon tea or high tea that we are going to have in a hotel, like a deep tea buffet? You're partially correct, but not completely correct. We're not talking about the British style or the historical high tea that we normally see in a hotel. We're talking about the Hong Kong style cha chan tang afternoon tea, not the ones you normally see in a hotel. But it looks delicious, isn't it? But the one that we're going to talk about today is also very delicious. And we're going to make use of eggs to do it. And this is the Hong Kong style, and it's unforgettable. Once you tasted it, you'll love it forever. And that's the traditional Hong Kong style, unforgettable French toast. As you can see in the picture, it requires some skill to dip them into the boiling oil in order to fry them. It's not a shallow fry skill, neither is it a deep fry skill, but in between, you need more oil compared to scrambled egg, but not as much oil as you make French fries. Can you see that? And normally it goes with milk tea, the Hong Kong style milk tea, 港式奶茶, to go with 西多士. And sometimes if you want, you can add something in the fillings, and that would be peanut butter, 花生酱 in between. And then if you like, you can add some butter or margarine together with some syrup, and preferably maple syrup. Now, we're going to watch the video to see how this can be made without pain. It's not a piece of cake, but it's not as difficult as what you think. Guess what Miss Annie is going to make today for the afternoon tea? I think you guys can probably make it for your daddy and mommy. Look at that. This is the syrup. Oh, Miss Annie, are you going to make a pancake? No, of course not. Can you see the bread? With the syrup, with 4 eggs, which I'm able to make 2 portions, and 4 slices of bread. And how come I need cheese? I'll show you why. So this is the ingredient that I need today. And also later on, if possible, I'm going to put some tomatoes in it. So I have 4 slices of bread here. 4 eggs enough for 2 portions. Some syrup. And also some cheddar cheese. So actually there are 2 ways that I'm going to present for the French toast today. And these are the ingredients that I need. First of all, I need to crack the eggs. And I just forgot. It's slightly better if you can add some milk to it. And then right after that, we can start to beat the eggs. For the milk, you don't have to add a lot, of course. But it's different from scrambled egg. You can add slightly a little bit more. So for example, you can maybe add maybe 2 tablespoons. If you have cream, that's even better. Right after that, you can pour the beaten eggs to a plate. And make sure that your plate
is wide enough, is big enough to accommodate the bread. So I just make sure that I use the size of the plates to accommodate the piece of bread. What can you do next before you dip it into the egg mixture? You have to dip the bread into the egg mixture. But before that, you can trim off or cut off the edges of the bread. Because some people don't like the French toast with the edge of the bread, the edges of the bread. But I don't throw away the edges, okay? Because I use it as breadcrumbs, or I can cut it into pieces, mix them with olive oil, and put them in the oven. And that's the one that can be mixed into the salad. It's very crispy and it's tasty, I can assure you. Now, the next step is to show you how to make the French toast. So first of all, before dipping the French toast, the bread into the egg mixture, you have to heat up the wok first and turn it to low fire. Make sure that it's dry before you add the oil. Now it should be dry enough. So I just forgot about mentioning the oil. Of course, you can add oil and you can add butter. So you need slightly a little bit more oil, different from scrambled egg. You need slightly a little bit more oil to make sure that it's enough to fry the French toast. And of course, you're not deep frying it, but still you need a little bit more oil. Okay, so now we can start preparing the bread soaked in the egg mixture. So now I'm going to dip that into the egg mixture. First of all, Miss Annie choose to dip the 4 sides before I dip the whole thing. So this is the way you do. Dip it here. Dip it here. Okay, so dip the 4 sides. And then you can simply put it here and dip the other 2 sides. Wow. That's good enough. So after dipping the bread in the egg mixture, and the oil is hot enough, you can just place it inside the oil. Wow, isn't that great? But be careful, you can't be splashing. You have finished one side, flip on to the other side, and make sure that you fry the 4 sides, the 4 edges as well. Now, while waiting, Miss Annie has just cut the other 2 slices of bread into half to be dipped inside the egg mixture as well. As I figure out that I may not need the other 2 eggs because I haven't finished the egg mixture, so I can simply dip it inside.
Now you can see that it's done on both sides and on 4 edges. So we can simply take it out, make sure that it's not so oily, and then put it on a plate. Right after that, of course, you add the syrup. And normally Miss Annie use maple syrup, but this time I have used a good brand name from Japan. This is a Japanese syrup, which is very, very tasty. Remember, we still have some oil left in the pan. So what's the good use of the remaining oil? Of course, you don't dump them away. Can you see on the left-hand side of the video? Remember, that's the second part that we are going to do. I would like to make not a traditional one, but the modern style. We call it the Korean style French toast. So we simply dip it into the egg mixture again, and then fry on two sides. And of course, you don't waste the oil. What do you add? You add all the egg mixture into the wok, and then make sure that the egg goes around the whole pan. That's the new Korean style. And make sure that you put it on low fire because you don't want your eggs to get burned. What's next? Of course, you have to use your spatula. Flip them to the other side. So if you have turned it to high fire, then you regret. You have to turn it to low fire. Now on four sides of the eggs, you can see the eggs, you just flip it. And then add a piece of cheese. Of course, at this moment, you can add other stuff such as tomatoes or luncheon meat, whatever you like, to make it tastier. But Miss Annie has figured out that the tomatoes are all rotten. So I have to dump them into the rubbish bin. You see the cheese are actually melting. Can you see that? So you have to turn it to low fire. Make sure that you turn it to low fire. Okay, so just heat it until the cheese is melted inside. Wow, this is done. And for the other two pieces, I have made it into French toast as well. So now I have the conventional French toast as well as the Korean modern style French toast. Wow. Now, guess all of you have finished watching the video. So what's next? Let's do a little bit review. So what are the ingredients? Do you still remember the ingredients for making the traditional or Hong Kong style? I would say Hong Kong style, but because when we talk about traditional one would be talking about the Hong Kong style, but not the French style. This is the Hong Kong style French toast. And of course, you need two thin slices. Or you can have a thick one. Doesn't matter. Just two thin or one thick slice of white bread. And it's better to be white bread because if you use wheat bread, it's not as good. It's not compatible. 2 eggs for every 2 pieces of white bread or 1 thick slice. And to make it a milky texture in the French toast, some Tang seafood would say, well, it's still good to get some milk in it or cream in it. So you can add 2 teaspoons or 1 tablespoon, and that will do. And of course, because this is, well, in between shallow to deep fry, so of course you need more oil. And I would say, well, 6 tablespoons of oil would be enough. As you can see the picture before, you need more oil. That's kind of like close to deep fry. And after you've finished, you can add the syrup. And before that, of course, you can put the butter on the toast first. And this is just optional. Some people don't want that to be so oily, so they would to skip butter and then simply add maple syrup or syrup on top. And there are many kinds of syrup out there. There are healthy version, okay, for diabetes one. So you can choose that one. And the last filling is actually for the modern style. And we'll talk about that later. Oh, actually, as you can see in the video, I've shown this part to you. I call it the Korean style. Yeah, because this is very popular in Korea. And of course, I call it the modern French style, whereby you can add the fillings like cheese, tomatoes, ham, or luncheon. And this is just up to personal preference. For the cooking tools, of course, we need a small frying pan, and just make sure that the size should be slightly bigger than your slice of bread. Otherwise, you cannot deep fry them. Of course, a spatula for lifting the French toast after you have finished deep frying it. And preferably a spatula with holes in it to separate the oil from the French toast. And it's good to have a pair of tongs, as you can see in the picture before, although it's not shown in the video. That's for holding the toast when you are frying the four edges. But you don't have it, then it's no big deal. Forget about it. A pair of chopsticks if you don't have tongs. And of course, the pair of chopsticks, which is a good tool. I mean, the chopsticks in Chinese, this is a good invention. You can be used for holding the toast while you're deep frying it. And it can be also used for beating the eggs, right? For beating the eggs. And of course, you can use a fork or an egg whisk to beat the eggs. So the chopstick is very useful. Here, that you can talk about two purposes. A small knife, if you plan to cut the edges of the bread before dipping it into the egg mixture, well, if you don't mind having the edges, then forget about the knife. Just put it aside. What are the steps? Do you still remember? So first of all, crack the eggs in a bowl. Beat the eggs with a pair of chopsticks, a fork, or an egg whisk. Add 2 teaspoonfuls of milk or cream to the beaten eggs. Mix the eggs and the milk. Heat up your frying pan and make sure there's no water in it. Remember, if you add oil in a pan with water, it's going to harm you for sure. Okay, it's very painful, so beware of that. Take 6 tablespoons of oil into the pan. Dip the 4 edges of bread into the egg mixture while you are waiting for the oil to heat up. Then the 2 sides of the bread into the egg mixture as well. I like it to be soaking wet because it's tastier. And then place the bread that's soaked with egg mixture into the heated oil slowly. Don't just dump it in. You get hurt. Slowly. And then turn to medium fire. Otherwise, the oils can splash. Secondly, what happened? The bread will be burned for sure. Flip it to the other side when one side turns to golden brown color. Use a pair of tongs. If you don't have tongs, forget about it. Then you can use chopsticks to hold the toast and fry the 4 edges. You don't want to do it, forget about it. It's no big deal either. So you can skip step 10. 11, put a piece of disposable. Okay, disposable means you can throw it away after you use it. Okay, you don't need to reuse it. And besides, it's impossible to reuse it. Okay, you can't rinse it under water and wash it. So it's simply dump it away after using it. Okay, just throw it into the rubbish bin. And this is what we call disposable. Kitchen paper towel on the plates. What's the purpose? Oh, of course, to absorb the extra oil from the toast. Remember, you're deep frying it is a bit oily, so you need to absorb the extra oil from the toast. And this is better. Then place the toast on the plate with paper towel. Right after that, for a while, after the kitchen paper towel absorbs some of the extra oil, then you transfer the toast to another nice, beautiful decoration plates. Then add butter and syrup. Bon appetit. That means enjoy your food.